What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another video on my channel. It's been ages since my last video, which was the Destiny 2 review. Thank you for the above average amount of views I got on that. That's much appreciated. But it's been ages since I made another video, and that's because I've kind of been sitting around trying to figure out exactly what sort of videos I do want to do for the long-term future. So I really enjoyed doing the Destiny 2 review. It was awesome. I don't know why, I just love being critical and analysing games. I don't have a lot of people in my general friend circle that get that serious about talking about why games are good and why games are bad. They just play them or they don't. So it's really nice to be able to put those sort of analytical thoughts into a video, as it were, like I did with the Destiny 2 review. So problem is that I can't do a lot of reviews of brand new games. I don't have a ton of time, so playing all the brand new releases is a little bit difficult for me. So I'm going to start this little sort of, I don't want to call it a series because it's not going to be overly regular, but I am going to start this little mini series, I suppose, where I go back and I revisit some of the old classics that most of us would have loved back in the day. And today we are going to start off with the first title, which is going to be Halo Combat Evolved. It's an amazing game and I can't wait to get talking about it. These videos are going to follow a basic sort of pattern of graphics, audio, gameplay and a storyline in that order, and then just a general verdict at the end. So without further ado, if you do enjoy, like and subscribe, and we will get straight into this. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for watching.
Well, that's it then. Bring the ship back up to Combat Alert Alpha. I want everyone at their stations.
Everyone, sir?
Everyone. And Cortana.
Hmm?
Let's give our old friends a warm welcome.
I've already begun.
So, Halo Combat Evolved, aliens, spaceships, epic storyline, half-decent cutscenes, and some damn fine gameplay elements. Let's just dump into why this game is so awesome. First up, it's visuals. So it's no secret to most people that when Halo Combat Evolved did launch on the original Xbox back in 2001, it was, for the time, a very nice looking game. A wide-ranging colour palettes, beautiful vistas, really nice animations, and some really nice just general gameplay, sort of graphics and visuals, mostly brought about by the Havoc physics engine that they used back in the day. Really made Halo a standout on a visual basis. The aliens all had their own unique movements, your Marines all had their own unique movements, vehicles all felt extremely different to drive just on a visual basis, let alone a physics basis, and like I said, the vistas in Halo Combat Evolved were way ahead of their time, way ahead. Granted, in the remastered edition, the vistas look that much more stunning because it's done with a modern day just graphics engine, and generating nice skyboxes is part of the pleasures of gaming in 2017, a la Destiny 2 or The Witcher. But Halo Combat Evolved did a really good job back in 2001. You got to think this is the days where people were still playing Quake, Half-Life 2, among others, and a few others like Time Splitters and stuff like that all looked fairly subpar. Halo Combat Evolved was at the forefront of graphical sort of enhancement at the time. Something that Halo games, despite their other flaws over the years, have been able to keep up with the trend of being at the forefront of graphical prowess. That being said, there are some hitches here and there. For even the main characters, their faces looked god-awful back in the day.
Captain Keyes. Good to see you, Master Chief. Things aren't going well. Cortana did her best, but we never really had a chance.
While the animations were nice, the voice syncing, the lip syncing on the actual characters was terrible. I don't know exactly what kind of face mocap they used back in the day, but whatever they did use wasn't quite enough, to be honest. They might not have even done facial mocap back in the day. It could have all been animation, in which case I'll forgive them, but that wasn't the best even for then. But the general graphics on a general basis, from environment to guns to vehicles to AIs to just environment elements like rocks, trees, grass and all that, all looked really nice back in the day. Although they did have that standard thing in games back then of trying to hide as much behind scenery as possible so that graphics didn't have to render in all at once. So the very first level you're on the Halo, there's cliffs and stuff in the way of every major area, so it can load in between. Some of the bigger levels have sort of mist or snow or something, so it doesn't have to render quite so much detail at a distance. But this is stuff that games still do even now, granted on a larger basis. So overall, graphics were really nice. For 2001, I cannot complain at all. Does it stand up to today's standards? I think it's a pretty obvious answer, no. There are £5 indie games on the Steam store. There are probably free games. In fact, there are free games. Paladins, I'm looking at you, and a few others. They look nicer than Halo Combat Evolved did back in the day. But that is just because of the time it was launched. At the time, it was one of the nicest shooters on console, and it's certainly one of the nicest games to look at on console in general. So I really can't slate this too much, but it would have been nice to see some better facial animation, mainly in the cutscenes, but also during general gameplay, because the AI soldiers just looked quite laughable when they're talking. Overall, not a bad job. Could have been better in places.
Warning. I've detected multiple Covenant dropships on approach. I recommend moving into those hills. If we're lucky, the Covenant will believe...
Next up, we have audio, and this is going to cover music, voice acting, and general environmental sound. So first up is music.
Alert. Covenant dropship inbound. They must be looking for survivors. I recommend immediate evasion.
Bungie have an amazing pedigree when it does come to soundtracks and instrumentals, and have even had history of using far more in the limelight music in their games, such as Breaking Benjamin in Halo 2. But that's just something Bungie do really well. Destiny 1, the soundtrack was amazing. Destiny 2, the soundtrack was amazing. All of the Halo games, especially Halo 1, 2, and 3, the soundtracks were incredible. But Halo Combat Evolved birthed that. It started it. It set the bar for epic single-player stories where music is concerned, and is undoubtedly some of the major inspiration for other stunning soundtracks such as Dishonored, The Witcher, some other games as well that I probably can't think of at this time because it's come quite tired, okay, leave me alone. But the music in Halo Combat Evolved gives me chills even now. Just recording the footage for this game, as I was sort of winding down and thinking of stopping the recording, I sat on the main menu and listened to the music for 10 minutes. I'm not even exaggerating either. That open sort of church hymn that plays while you're loading up is stunning. Stunning stuff. We've all seen that video on Facebook of the guy in the church singing it. And there's a reason that sounds so good. The music just resonates with a person. And that's sort of a piece of music that can instantly give you an emotive connection to a game you've never played before is an amazing thing to achieve. And that is what Halo Combat Evolved did with that opening music. But it doesn't stop. The music ramps up and ramps down really nicely throughout the campaign, and while I was playing on the Master Chief Collection, I did experience some music glitches, as it were, random halts and stops. I don't remember these ever happening on the original copy, and I have played those fairly recently, like the last few years, so I'm pretty sure it's just a problem with the Master Chief Collection, so I'm not going to go too far into that. But the music is incredible. First few levels, the music sort of balances from tension to epic to like hard rock tunes, like guitars, drums, pounding beats that just sound really nice with the gameplay and fit really nice with the heavy sounding guns. We'll go more into detail on the guns in a minute, but yeah, the music is incredible. That opening hymn is stunning. The rock anthems that kick in when you're driving around on Halo, on the Silent Cartographer or 2 Betrayals, or the music during the later mission when you're trying to outrun a bomb. It's all stunning stuff. I literally cannot fault the music at all. And it's not just the fact that they do good music as well. They know when to tone it down. At the start of Truth and Reconciliation, when you're silently trying to snipe enemies, although how you silently snipe enemies with that gun, I don't understand. But you're trying to silently clear an area and there's no music. It's just very, very low key. Just under the background noise. You can just about hear it, and that level of awareness when it comes to music design is incredible, and it's something Bungie have always managed flawlessly. So, unlike most of the areas in Combat Evolved, I cannot fault the music whatsoever. Absolute 10 out of 10 stuff all the way through. Next up, we're on to voice acting.
Cortana, all I need to know is, did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that. I've isolated approach signatures for multiple CCS-class battle groups. Make it 3 capital ships per group. And in about 90 seconds, they'll be all over us.
Well, that's it then. Bring the ship back up to Combat Alert Alpha. I want everyone at their station.
And this is a weird one to judge, because had they done it differently, they might have lowered the bar in other areas. So let me explain. So there is a cast of maybe 5 main characters. You have Cortana, 343 Guilty Spark, Captain Keyes, Foehammer, and of course the Master Chief or Spartan 117. And these 5 characters are all voiced really well, especially for the time. There are some games that have masterful voice acting all the way through, like for instance Half-Life 2. Halo had masterful voice acting, flawless stuff on 5 of the main characters. Well, they owned all the 5 main characters of the game, basically. And then you have the other side of it, which is the AI voice acting. The Grunt's voice acting is genuinely hilarious, to be honest, all the way through. It's funny, it's not particularly good, and it doesn't feel quite at home inside the sort of hard-to-heart war scenario that Halo is. Get past the goofy jumping and the grenades and the fact you're fighting aliens, and it's actually quite a serious topic that they're talking about. It's potential genocide. And the Grunts, like, funny one-liners when you're shooting them just doesn't quite fit in, and I've thought that for years now. The Elites, they don't really talk, they don't really make any sound, they make sort of warbling sounds, and I think that's really weird when the Grunts can speak English, but the Elites and the Jackals don't. All the Hunters, obviously, they don't speak English, and I think that's a bit strange. That does change later on in the series again, but in Halo Combat Evolved, the Grunts, the lowest form of the Covenant, are the only ones that speak English. That doesn't quite sit at home with me. And then you get on to the Human Marines, and it's safe to say their voice acting is pretty suspect. I think I've probably got a few examples for you right about now.
I'm a cowardly fool! Cowardly fool! I thought we were the only ones who made it off the Pillar of Autumn. Look sharp! Covenant dropship on approach! I could use some help over here!
But, like I said, the 5 main characters are masterfully voice acted, and they do get the majority of the lines. What the Marines say and what the aliens say is really peripheral to what the main characters are saying. And for the most part, aside from some awkward deliveries from Foehammer, that is masterfully done across the board, especially from Cortana, 343 Guilty Spark, and Captain Keyes. Pretty incredible stuff all the way through, and I did get genuinely emotively attached to both Cortana and Captain Keyes and Foehammer. And when Foehammer meets her grisly end at the end of the game, I was devastated as a kid. I was absolutely devastated, I can't deny it. Oddly enough though, I didn't get too attached in the first game to the Master Chief. He was almost like the guy from Doom, basically a silent protagonist, gets a few lines here and there, conversations with Cortana or in cutscenes, but most of the time he doesn't say a word, and I didn't really get attached to Master Chief till the later games in the series, Halo 2 and Halo 3, and in Halo 1 it's a bit weird that you're playing as a guy that you literally don't really care about. At least that's the way I feel about Halo 1, some people are going to be different. But yeah, voice acting overall, not bad. Could have been better on the AI and the peripheral characters, to say the least, especially on the Elites and the Jackals. Could have been far more imaginative. Next up we have general environmental sounds, and this includes gun sounds. And while not sonically accurate to how guns sound, they're just not, you can't deny it. You're playing a game that's set in the year 2552 or some shit, so you can give them some slack, okay? And while the guns may not sound necessarily accurate to their real-life counterparts, they do sound incredible. The assault rifle and the sniper rifle both sound fucking insane. Probably 2 of the best sounding guns that I've ever used in games ever. The sniper rifle is so addictive. The boom, the echo, the clack when you pull the round back into the chamber. It just all sounds so good, and that's consistent through all of the weapons. You know what you're being shot by the instant you're shot just by the sound of the gun. The sound of a rocket launcher going off is terrifying, especially if one of your Marines is firing it, because who knows where that shit is going to end up. And that is the same with all the guns, really. They all sound incredible, they all sound unique, and they all sound really at home in the Halo universe. And that's really well done. I can't fault the game sounds at all. If you're a gun nut, you're obviously going to fault the fact that they're not sonically accurate to their real-life counterparts. But I'm not that, and they do sound so good. So satisfying, it's great. Where environmental sounds are, again, this is excellent across the board. The best example I can think of is the start of 343 Guilty Spark, the level where you first meet the Flood. That opening section when you're trudging through a swamp surrounded by mist and just gross stuff and trees and the occasional enemy. There's basically no music, it's very low key, but you can hear so much going on. It may not even be pertaining particularly to the way you're playing the game. You're not gonna hear something particularly important that you can't miss, but it kind of just soaks you in atmosphere and really brings you into the whole experience. And that is some of the finest examples of music and just general sound design I can think of, especially at 343 Guilty Spark, and it's quite consistent throughout the entire game. Basically, the sound of a grenade going off behind you sounds awesome. The environmental sounds sound awesome, and just general, as you can tell, I think the world of the sound design in Halo Combat Evolved. When the only thing that you can really criticize is the sounds that the aliens make and the sounds that the peripheral marine AIs make, you know they've done a pretty stand-up job across the board, and that's just the way that the sound design is in all of the Halos and all of the Destinies. Is terrific. It just is. You can't deny it anymore, unfortunately. Now we've covered visuals and audio, we are on to gameplay. And Halo has been known for an addictive, very satisfying gameplay loop. It's pretty much the best thing about Halo is that gameplay loop. Walk into an area, clear the area, reload, find ammo, heal yourself up, move on to the next area. Assisted along by some story and some linear level design. The gameplay in Halo is fantastic. There's not many games that are as addictive to play as Halo. Destiny is one of them. Overwatch is another. For quite a few years, Call of Duty was one. Having that core gameplay loop, that thing that the game relies on, having that as solid as anything can make up for other downfalls in the game. Call of Duty always had poor single players, but that gameplay loop in multiplayer always kept people playing. And Halo is so fantastic in other departments that the fact that the actual, I keep saying this a lot, the gameplay loop is this good, the incentive to play is that good. It just speaks the world of the game design of Bungie, basically. At the hands of Bungie, that they've crafted something this well. Walking into an area, scouting it out with a sniper rifle or your pistol zoom, clearing that area, and then moving on is something... It sounds so simple, but it's absolutely not. The way the enemy hierarchies work, you've got common, you've got medium, and then you've got super tough enemies. We'll use elites as an example. It goes blue, red, and then I believe it's white or gold. I can't quite remember which way around. I think in Halo 1 it's gold, and then they introduced the white elites later on. And then obviously you have the Arbiters as well, but I'm not going to go full nerd here. That hierarchy system carries over to both Grunts and Jackals, and knowing exactly how strong one enemy compared to another is key to figuring out how you're going to enter a fight. Each enemy has their own manner of protecting themselves. Grunt hunts in packs, Jackals usually sit back from afar and have a wrist-mounted shield. Hunters are just terrifying to play against on any difficulty, and the elites are strategically some of probably the better AI you're going to see in a game of that time. To be honest, trying to stick them with a grenade is an absolute nightmare. They know when to go in for a melee, they know when to take cover, and this intelligent AI surrounded by the class hierarchy and each different means of defending itself means engagements with the Covenant is increasingly more satisfying the further the game goes on. And then this adds to vehicles and the addition of the Flood later on, which I'll get onto in a minute, and just generally the gameplay feels so nice. But there are negatives to the way it hasn't aged particularly well. Even now, Halo 5 has introduced sort of ADS functions into its game with the battle rifles, the DMRs and that, and going back and playing Halo Combat Evolved, when you're just sort of shooting from the hip all the time, feels extremely clunky, and not unlike the old Doom and Quake games that are basically unplayable at this point because we've been blessed by so many good mechanics in recent years. And that hasn't aged particularly well on Halo's part. And then you come on to the somewhat questionable fact of the Flood later on in the game. Whereas the Covenant are quite challenging but understandable enemy, the Flood introduced this sort of chaotic freneticness to the general combat. And there's nothing quite as disappointing as spending 20 minutes clearing an area with a shotgun and an assault rifle, hunting for ammo because the Flood are absolute bullet sponges, only to get cross-mapped by a Flood Marine that's definitely got aimbot, using a rocket launcher from across the other side of the map or canyon or plateau or whatever it is you're fighting on. The Flood are an endless cause of cheap deaths, one that on higher difficulties they can one-shot you quite easily with any means, and that does somewhat suck away the fun in the later levels, but it doesn't take away too much from the general gameplay loop. I love that phrase. So overall, gameplay is very well done. Flood could have been better considered, but that's probably because I had so much trouble on Legendary when I was a kid. I'm probably still a little bit salty, so we'll take it with a pinch of salt. Next up, we'll briefly cover the story. Halo's story is incredible. As a series, the story it has created is almost flawless. Some of the later titles have some particular holes that I don't want to talk about right now. but as a general, the story they've created over the 6 or 7 releases, not including Halo Wars, is stunning stuff. And Halo Combat Evolved is the story that started that. Prior to Halo Combat Evolved, there were no books, no comics, just a baseline script and an idea from a relatively unknown studio. And the fact they created something so ambitious for their first major title is quite incredible. As far as I'm aware, Bungie's only major game before Halo was a game called Marathon? I want to say Marathon, but I'm not entirely certain, so correct me if I'm wrong. And to jump into a storyline as challenging, as ambitious, and as epic as Halo Combat Evolved is a massive compliment to the quality of staff that they clearly had. They dump you in the first level and you have no fucking clue what's going on. You're apparently this gigantic super soldier. You have no explanation of why you look different to the rest of the Marines, why you're about 1.5 feet taller, and why you're so good at shooting, and why these aliens have a general grudge against humankind, and a specific grudge against you particularly. It doesn't tell you anything, and quite frankly, you don't find out much until the later 4 or 5 levels of the game. The game just relies on that yearning for more information to push you forward. And it does it so well. It does it so well. You have the basest of information to start with. Halo want the Covenant there. There's a brief mention of the fact that the Covenant want Earth. There's a brief mention of the fact that they don't want humankind on Halo. And then later on, there's more and more hints as to why they don't want people on Halo, what they're looking for, and why they fucked up later on in the game. But other than that, you get small morsels of information as you go on. The story's not thrown at you. There's a lot you have to figure out, and it does rely on you being quite intelligent. It's worth noting that when Halo Combat Evolved did release, it was a 16, I believe. So obviously you had to be a certain age to be playing it. I was playing it a little bit younger than that. So a lot of it was lost on me as a kid. That need of getting more story, getting more information, finding out what's going on is really a terrific feat, because I have become so invested in the Halo universe. I own most of the books, I own all of the games in one form or another, and I have played all of the games, except for Halo Wars 2, because I wasn't particularly bothered. Sue me. But the storyline is so good that once you're in for good. The books are an incredible addition. There's comic books, there's even a TV series, there's a film that was a kind of average but still okay to watch. There's so much that has been birthed from Halo Combat Evolved's success, and they did such a good job with it that I can't really slate it too much in general. It's, you know, it's just good. It's just awesome to experience and be a part of and be immersed in for 15 hours. It's just that good. Anyway guys, that's probably going to be the end of this blast from the past, to be fair. I've been talking for a lot longer than I planned, about 24 minutes. I don't know what length the video is at this point, obviously. But if you did enjoy this, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below if you have any ideas for games to cover, because I've played a lot of games in my years. There's not going to be many I haven't played or haven't heard of. And there's certainly games that I can go and find out about and explain why I think they're good. So if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Most of all, thank you so much for watching. My name's been Zach, you've all been awesome, and peace!